section's on 7.2 matrix of algebra. So we're going to work with second order and third order determinants. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So the second order determinant is going to look something similar to this. It's going to be like an absolute value right there, not the brackets like we did on the matrix on this last section. Okay, so it's an absolute. And then we also have is the location. So this is A1. Remember we had talked about this on the matrix. This is going to be row 1, but notice the column number is not involved in this case. So we're just having is just the row. So this is then A1 for row 1, B1 for row 1, and then we have this A2 for row 2, and then B2 for row 2 right there. Okay? The operation that we're going to work with is we're going to cross multiply these two right here, and then cross multiplication on this part right here. Now you always are going to start with the left side in this case right here. And the operation that you're going to do is then you're going to multiply these right here and then subtract it from the 2 right here. So when it looks something like this, A1 times B2 right there, and then subtract it from is the B2 and A1 right there. So that's what we have right here. Okay? So that's the formula for the second order determinant. So now let's try an example. So example on this right here, I have in the first row is 8, 4, 7, and 6. We're going to take this and we're going to multiply across like we did the other one. So this is right here, 8 times 6 right there. And then we're going to subtract it from 7 times 4 right there. Okay? So then this is our setup right here. 8 times 6 right there. Subtract it from 4 times 7. That's what we have right there. And then we simplify that. So that becomes 48 minus 28, and then we continue to simplify, and you get 20 as your final answer. Okay? Example 2. So same thing we have is a negative 2 and a 9, and then negative 3 and a 5. Now I purposely put negative numbers in this case because we're going to have to deal with some negatives. So let's do the same thing. We're going to take the negative 2 times the 5 right there, diagonally right there, subtract it from the other diagonal. Now the other diagonal, when you get to that part, it's going to be minus, right? 9 times a negative 3 right there. So we have a negative also involved. So I have this negative 2 times 5 right there, and as I mentioned, this negative right there, and this is the operation. It's always a minus right there. So this part right here will give us a positive right there. Okay? So if we simplify, this is what it looks like, and we continue to simplify it, we're going to get 17 as your final answer. Alright, so that's a 2 by 2. So now let's talk about 3 by 3. So a 3 by 3, third order, what it looks like is something like this. It's going to be 3 rows, 3 columns, right? And then same thing. Notice that the location right there, we have is all rows right here. And then this is all rows, no column numbers in this as well. Okay? Now, here's the tricky part. So this is a visual thing. We're only going to use these guys right here as a coefficient, and then we're going to make a 2 by 2 order, like we just did on the last 2 examples, and then we're going to multiply them together. What does that mean? It sounds confusing, right? So let me show you. Now, here's the first part. I took the A1 coefficient, right? And then I'm going to make a 2 or second order determinant right here. Now, how do I get this? So this is the visual thing. If you're working on A1 right here, A1, what you're going to do is you're going to block out this whole row right there, and you're also going to block out the whole column right there. Okay? So can you see it now? So you're going to now take only these 2 numbers, that's what we got right here, and then these numbers right here, and that's how we set up that part right there. Okay? Next. Then we take the B1 coefficient, B1, and we do the same thing. So because it's B1, we're going to take out the whole row right there, and we're going to take out the whole column of B1 right there. So can you see that now? So now you're going to take the ones on the outside. So that's the A2, C2, A3, and then C3. So that's how we got this set up right here. Okay? Now, pay attention to this one right here. It's always going to be a minus on the second part right there. All right, last one. So obviously, we're going to take the C1 as the coefficient, right? So then we're going to block out the whole row and column of that C1, just like how we did with the other one. So that's how we're going to set this up. C1 is the coefficient, and then so everything blocked out right there, we only have is this 4 numbers right there. So that's how we get these right here. Okay? Now, pay attention also to the positive and negative signs. So the first one's always positive, negative, and positive. Always, always, always. Alright? So other than that, that's going to be the setup for a third order determinant. So now let's try some examples. So now example 1, same thing what we just talked about. So we're going to take this coefficient right here, the negative 4. We're going to block out the whole row and column of that. and make a second order determinant with that. Okay, so let's see that. So -4, and again, this is what we have left, so that's this part right here, okay? And then the next operation was a minus, right? And we're going to take a -6, so that's going to become a +6, right? We're going to block out the whole row, the column of that, and set that up. So it's going to look something like this right here, okay? And then the last one is going to be the 2. Do the same thing. We're going to take out the whole row and column of that one, and that's going to be the second order. Okay, so that's just the setup right here. So now the continuation is what we just did on the second order of the determinant. We still have to cross, multiply, subtract it from the other side right there. So that's what we're doing. So we bring the -4 down, and we're going to go ahead and multiply across this direction. So -1 times -3 gives us +3, minus, because that's the operation, right? And we have this 4 times 3 right there, gives us the 12 right there. Okay? Plus now 6, because of this negative times negative, so that's +6 right there. And we do the same thing. 5 times -3 gives us -15, right? And then minus, and then this part right here gives us a -6, so negative and negative gives us a +6 in this case. Okay? Alright, +2, so this is the +2, and then we have this 5 times 4, that gives us the 20 right there, and then we have this -2 times -1 gives us +2, so it's a minus right there. So that's the setup right there. So we continue to simplify it. So when we simplify, the 3 minus 12 becomes a -9, -15 plus 6 becomes a -9, 20 minus 2 becomes an 18, and then we again simplify further and get 18 as your final answer. Okay, so that's the third order determinant. So those are going to be the classwork that you're going to work on is the second order and also the third order determinants.